Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to this evening's Board of Trustees meeting. Sorry, I need to move this. Oops, sorry, I lost my place. There we go. Via Zoom. As you know, the governor has just declared a state of emergency in California as a result of the threat of COVID-19. The governor issued Executive Order N-25-20, which directs Californians to follow public health directives, including canceling large gatherings. The executive order also allows local legislative bodies to hold meetings via conference calls while still satisfying state transparency requirements. The governor has also issued Executive Order N-33-20, prohibiting people from leaving their homes or places of residence except to access necessary supplies and services or to engage in specified critical infrastructure employment. As a result, this meeting is being held solely by video and telephonic means and has been made accessible to members of the public on the link at the Moreland School District's website and on board docs. Any person who requires accommodations to access the meeting has been asked to contact the superintendent's office within 24 hours of this meeting. This meeting is being recorded and may be published online at a later date. Okay, next up we have the flag salute. Please stand if you'd like. Put your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next on our agenda, I'd like to report that there was no action taken in closed session. And moving right along, we are now at the part in the agenda for approving the agenda. So board members, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Sriram. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, not sure whose voice that was.
That was me, Brian.
Ryan, okay, great.
My video's not working. I don't know why.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote on approving the agenda. Trustee Chatrathi?
Aye.
Trustee Penzel?
Aye.
Trustee Salas?
Aye.
Trustee Sutton?
Aye.
Trustee Reynolds-Grabby? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next we have comments from the public. Take it away, Heather.
Good evening. Members of the public may address the board on any subject of concern to you, including those not on tonight's agenda. However, provisions of the Brown Act preclude any action. As an unagendized item, no response is required or permitted from the board or district staff, and as I've already stated, no action can be taken. The board, however, may instruct the superintendent to follow up, which may or may not include placing the item on a future meeting agenda. If you would like to address the board this evening, please complete the request for public comment form within the first 15 minutes of the board meeting being called to order in public session. This Google form is located on the district website as well as the Moreland School District Board Docs website. On the form, please list the agenda items you would like to speak to. If your comments do not pertain to an agendized item, please write public comment. Those that submit a public comment form will have their comments read by a staff member at the appropriate time so that they are included in the meeting record and are typically limited to 3 minutes per comment. Do we have any comments this evening?
We have one public comment. It says the agenda item is opening of schools, but I don't believe that's on the agenda, so I can read it now if you'd like.
Okay, that works.
That'd be perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is from Christy Thraves. She's a parent at Easterbrook Discovery School. Her comment is, with the new rules of opening, what are the plans for reopening and what is the plan for reopening? That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Tanya. Okay, now we are moving right along to superintendent's report.
Okay, hello everybody, it's good to see you. So I will answer some of that question and then reach out to that parent afterwards to make sure all the questions were answered. But this last week, on Tuesday of last week, we did open 2 classes per site. We had district administrators out at all the sites, not to mention that all of our principals were there, and assistant principals, and Tracy was everywhere, and it rolled out extremely well. It was really, really wonderful to see children. And so we rolled those 2 classes out per school. So it's really 168 children that we rolled out across our district, because we do have students who are struggling to connect. And so that was the first round. And that was underneath our waiver process that we had passed. Then we also, last week, opened 1 mod to severe class at EDS, and we opened 2 more today at Latimer, and we also opened our pain preschool program. And so these are the things that we've been opening. We have plans moving forward to open the other preschools and open any other mod to severe classrooms that we haven't opened, and also to do some special education testing. What's very, very confusing is that there are guidance documents upon guidance documents upon guidance documents. And so just about the time that we rolled out our first 2 classes, the state rolled out a guidance document on small groups and what can happen in small groups. That then was reviewed by our county health, and they rolled out Friday night guidance, which comes out just about every Friday night. Something comes out. New guidance on related to the state's plan on small group instruction, and our county rolled it out as it relates to our county opening. We're just now looking at that and what needs to happen. Additionally, the state also rolled out a new monitoring plan that we're just now looking at and starting to understand more fully, and was just presented to us late last week at the superintendent's meeting. So that plan has a color coding system as opposed to the 14 days off the watch list. And so we are, as of that last week, we were in purple. I haven't had a chance to check this morning, but there was an anticipation that we're moving into red in the next few weeks. Red is the area where schools can open when they're in red for a full 14 days. And so there's still a lot of clarification that we need about what that means to schools open. It does not mean that all kids come back, because the guidance document on how we roll that out hasn't addressed all kids coming back, because we have all these other restrictions. So Christy's question is a good question, and that's one of our goals this week, is to continue to study that. So we will continue to do that. However, we are in the process of looking at how we can support more students. So we're in dialogue with our principals and staff in the satellite kind of program model, or in an alternative model similar to that, following the new guidance that just came out on Friday. So the story is, our goal is to get as many students back in a safe model as possible, in a safe timeline, while working with our staff to do so respectfully of all the needs that they have. There's real constraints to, even if all the ducks are in a row and the document says this and all that kind of stuff, there's real constraints for us to just all of a sudden opening. And so the prediction is that, our target date for reevaluation is really the end of September, beginning of first week in October. We'll look at it and see where we are then, so that we give everybody a chance to process. And then we'll also be moving towards models, interim models. So it's a complicated process, but I feel like that we're trying to address every situation that comes down the pike. And so I had President's Council last week, and our parents were extremely pleased at the President's Council with the level of support that students are getting. And I know our teachers are very, very hardworking in what they're doing, as are our classified. They're working super hard. And so we appreciate all that. And we will continue to work on what reopening looks like. But just know that it changes on a weekly basis, and you know, who's on first as far as guiding documents is something that takes a little bit of time because we're responsible for implementing the more restrictive of the two. And at any one time, that takes a little bit of time to figure out which one's the more restrictive of the two. So that's that piece of it. The second one that I am thrilled to bring to you is I shared last time that we're going to be highlighting students who in our district are doing different things to give back to Moreland. As I shared, COVID has really ramped up in our community spirit. And so tonight I bring to you a group that is going to be talking about their computer refurbishment plan that they and company or organization that they're trying to establish. And I'd like to start it, Matt's on with us tonight, with a video that they shared with us earlier. So Matt, take it away with the video. Let's hope it all works.
Right this. Oh.
Oops, we can't see it. No, there we go.
I'm a Mug, and I'm an 8th grader at Moreland Middle School.
Hi guys, I'm Max, a 5th grader from Baker Elementary School.
In this unpredictable time, the virus has forced many schools into distance learning. Although there are children who don't have access to a working computer, and not every school can provide faster Chromebooks for all of them. So we have started a campaign, so these children can better access the online work and can participate during distance learning. The way we will get our donations is through YouTube, social media, and door-to-door advertisement.
If you or someone you know has spare computers that you don't use or don't work, you should know. They could be put together to help people who can't afford a computer. We will restore them and update the old computers to newer functioning ones to the best of our abilities. If you know somebody who needs a computer, please inform us and we will attempt to get them one as well. We also have a YouTube channel called Computer Donation Campaign. Just scan this QR code here. I'll leave it here for a moment. Also, you just need to go to your camera on your phone and just hover over it. Okay, we also have a slogan. It's "Your kindness is power." We'll be saying that a lot in our videos.
Please email us if you have anything for donation or know someone who's in need. Email info is in the description box. Your kindness is power. Thank you for listening.
Okay, I mean, it is my pleasure to introduce the 3 Moreland students who are doing this wonderful work. And so I'm going to turn it over to Amash and Ashish and Max. So gentlemen, wave to us a little bit like this so the board can see where you are. And then I'm going to turn it over to the board members to also talk a little bit about questions that you might have for these 3 gentlemen.
That is amazing. I just wanted to say thank you, gentlemen, for coming up with such a great idea. So the video cut off a little bit. So can you guys tell me who goes to which school?
Oh, well, I go to Moreland Middle School, and I'm an 8th grader there.
Okay, and you're Ashish?
No, I'm a Mug.
Okay, thank you. 8th grader, okay. And then Max is?
I'm Max. I'm a 5th grader from Baker Elementary School.
Awesome, thank you, Max. Okay, and then?
I'm a 6th grader and I go to Moreland Middle School.
6th grade, okay, great. Thank you so much. Board members, do you have any questions for these wonderful gentlemen?
I would say bravo, bravo. This is Ryan. My video is not working. So I just wanted to say great job. How did you guys communicate this together? I know it looks like Amog and Ashish, sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly. You guys have communicated, or how did you guys all get together to come up with this fantastic idea?
Well,
Are you
we're
able to hear
actually,
me?
yeah, I can hear you. So we're actually neighbors, and we came to the realization that every child might not be able to access online work. So what we did is, it was really easy for us to reach out to each other because, well, we've known each other for a long time. And we reached out to each other and we decided to start this campaign so these children can actually access this online work better.
It might actually look like I might need your help because my video isn't working and my internet is slow. So this is actually not just for the kids, but probably also for some board members.
Okay. Could you hear me okay, by the way?
I can hear.
Okay.
I can hear you.
And so we are planning to, when we get our computers, we are planning to update the software, and we're actually reaching out to tech companies because to give us software so we can update them. But we actually need financial support to help get these. And we were wondering if the Moreland School District or the superintendent's office had any way, connections or something they could use to help us get these softwares.
You know what? We will figure out a way to connect you to some people. We have a lot of resources available to us. And so I will put that on my to-do list and get back to you.
Thank you so much. Really
Other board
appreciate it.
members?
I'll just chime in and congratulate you gentlemen. More and more we're hearing and learning how big the disparity is for some of our community. And so this is a terrific problem for you to tackle. It's actually something that we've been bringing to our district for some time, trying to maximize the resources we do have, as we often have declaration of surplus equipment, even on tonight's agenda. That includes technology and trying to figure out where and what we can do with that kind of equipment. And the problem has always been having the resources to bring it current, to make it a meaningful piece of equipment that actually helps students more than it hinders. And so I congratulate you on being problem solvers and such phenomenal contributors to your community. Give me a lot of hope and a lot of pride.
Wow, thank you very much.
Brian?
So so first of all, I think incredible idea, really good initiative, and the drive shown to kind of make this happen. So I used to build computers back when I had a lot of time on my hands, and I loved it. It used to be an awesome experience. I'm glad that you're doing it, and you're doing it for folks that need it the most. Are there any minimum requirements, etc., that you need for the computers, so that you probably also don't want to get really old computers, right?
It could be like, it doesn't need to work, and it could be like 10 years old. It's fine because we could just fix it up using parts.
Okay.
And then we also asked tech companies if they could offer like Wi-Fi cards and.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so one of the parents helping us out actually does have experience building computers, and we do plan to make sure the computer works after we're finished with it, and make sure it's like factory quality, so we can hand it out, and it's not just some kind of laggy, kind of not working computer, so they can actually use it and learn.
Okay, right. And I will, because of I also work for a tech company, but because I have conflict of interest I will reach out separately with Dr. Going and offer what help I can separately. I'll keep her posted, and she will.
That means a lot.
Thank you, Shreya.
Yeah, thank you.
Back when I was working at Apple, I used to manage the product placement group at Apple for about 4 years. And one thing that might be of interest to you gentlemen is tech companies often have a refurb program where through the company they refurbish equipment that then maybe goes somewhere and gets smashed, flattened, what have you. Maybe it's melted down. I'm not exactly sure where it ends up. But there may be a way creatively where you can work with these companies, and I'm sure you've thought of this, instead of having these things get melted down and smashed, potentially they could be donated to your cause and refurbished and then have new life. So just something from my old past that might have some bearing on what you're doing. And I'm very excited about this project, and it's amazing what you can do. And I love your saying, your kindness is power. That's awesome. And 2 of you are brothers. Am I imagining that, or are 2 of you?
Yeah,
okay.
It's me and Ashish. So.
Okay, 6th and 8th. Got it. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions or comments?
Okay. Thank you. Obviously we're very thrilled with the generosity of these young gentlemen who saw a need and filled it, just like our person we talked about last time. We're currently working with Tasha and Jody at Anderson to see how we can set up a distribution to families in need and identify families in need. And the 3 of you, I will commit to getting back to you about different avenues that have just been pouring into my text messages here as we're on to give you some avenues for support. And then also this afternoon, like we're doing with all of our students that we're highlighting, we did drop off a certificate of recognition, a little memento honoring their hard work. So I hope you boys all received it. If not, go look on your front porch. All right.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. That certificate really means a lot.
Good, good. Well, we will definitely join in this partnership with you in whatever way we can. And so thank you all for being here. Do you have parents that are with you today?
Yes, we do. We have 2, Niti and Ming.
All right. Well, congratulations, parents. Thank you for all that you do to help give back your time as well to our community. It makes us stronger when we do this together. So thank you, gentlemen. And you don't have to continue at the board meeting. We're going to move on with our agenda. And so I will turn it back to you, Julie.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thanks a
Okay.
lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay. Now we are, and you're done with your soups report?
I am.
Okay,
I am.
wonderful. Thank you. Now we're on to board member communication.
I can start. Well, I've still got fresh goosebumps from those sweet boys who are going to solve all of the world's problems, I'm sure. And just share with you, I was thrilled to attend the last MEF meeting, and kind of in that same spirit, really talking about children and how creatively they are working to address several challenges, not only our community, but several communities are facing. And so really phenomenal work being done in partnership with the Ed Foundation. And I'm sure, Mary Kay, you're tuned into all of that. And so I'm sure we'll be hearing more, but really just so heartwarming to know that these kids, in such a difficult time are like all in on how they can personally improve and affect some of these things. And so really great. Also at the MEF meeting, unfortunately learned, and I think it's been shared already, but that the pumpkin patch officially will not be happening in its traditional sense, which is, of course, a disappointment, but appropriate for the times. But what I really wanted to highlight is following that conversation, I was overwhelmed by the amount of energy and excitement as they brainstormed new fundraising ideas and ways in which they can continue to connect our community in this new environment. And so I'm really excited about the work they're doing. They had a great turnout, you know, especially when you know, several of them have probably been on Zoom all day already to log into an MEF meeting in the evening, but did so with excitement and support. Also, the other very pleasing, I guess, bit of feedback that I received since we had just recently kind of come back to school was that there were several parents very pleased with the rigor, the program, how hard, obviously, staff, teachers, everyone's been working to make sure that our kids are getting the same phenomenal Moreland education that they're accustomed to getting from afar. So a lot of really positive feedback in that way too, and they'll continue to meet. And I'm excited to see what they come up with. It's a really talented and dedicated group. The other thing I wanted to just highlight, we all get it, I hope all board members get it, it's the California School Boards Association. They put out a quarterly report of sorts. If you don't get it in your mailbox, try and find out why, because it's really phenomenal. But the reason I'm bringing it up this evening is that in this latest report, there were 2 articles specifically on items that we've been discussing. So it's very timely and I thought very helpful. The first article was addressing institutional racism as a governance team, and I know we've talked about when we reviewed, you know, the possibility of a resolution and things like that, making sure equity is always at the forefront of our minds. This article did a really beautiful job of providing a lengthy and helpful bullet list of what that might look like for a governance team. Some of the challenge I always face is, you know, so we have these ideas and beliefs, and the district, you know, works tirelessly to roll things out. Sorry, my dog says hello. But what does that look like in a boardroom? And how do we support our schools and our students from the boardroom, so to speak? So really, I thought, interesting article there. The second article was COVID-19 toll, including impact on the mental health of students and staff. And mental health is something we've been discussing a lot for some time. You know, some of the research and the increase of mental health needs is just overwhelming to begin with, and that was before a pandemic, and just knowing that the impact this is having on all of us is significant, and what that might look like in terms of demands on school districts now, and also when we return to the classroom. So if you haven't had a chance yet, fellow trustees, I would really encourage you to take a peek at those 2 articles. I, you know, just found them to be very timely and topics that we are, you know, right in the thick of discussing and reviewing. And so that would be it for me.
Thank you so much, Heather. Any other board members have anything they want to share?
I have one. So first of all, just want to say thank you to the teachers and staff, obviously, that are here. I mean, you guys are doing an incredible job. Had a chance to attend a series of open houses in different formats and new ways. Something that we'd love to do on the board, to go get those on-campus kind of moments to go see how teachers are approaching it. So I have the luxury of 3 kids and a whole variety of open houses to attend. And I just want to say I'm impressed to the person. I would be surprised if a parent could walk away and think that there wasn't an incredible effort and coordination either between teaching teams or staffs to try to increase the rigor and a good demonstration of what school days were going to be like, what expectations were. And I just think I'm impressed with how much effort teachers have put into this, and also impressed how many parents are attending them. And I don't know what it looks like in comparison to on-sites, but the ones I've attended have been very well attended, good sets of questions from parents. And so just want to say thank you for having to shift into this. And one more thing that is unusual, one more thing that is in addition to what teachers are doing on a daily basis. And I think that people are executing as well as could be expected given the circumstances. And I thought the tenor from parents was generally good. I didn't get a sense that parents were aggressive or frustrated about what was happening for them. Some questions about how the tech was working, some questions on how to, get help and facilitate questions for students. And so anyways, I felt very comfortable having attended them in the work that was being done. So thank you to the team.
Thank you, Brian. Any other board members report?
I have none.
Nothing for me this week.
Okay. I had, let me get back to it here. Okay, whoops. I had, I wanted to share a couple things. So I've been on social media quite a fair bit. And one thing I had noticed is that Comcast is very good about tooting their own horn for providing this wonderful access for families, in need. And so I've taken upon myself as just a person to, every time I see that pop up as a sponsored link, I usually will go in and comment on it and say, hey, 25 megabits isn't enough bandwidth for kids to do distance learning. Do you think you can do a little better than that? And so I've done it on Twitter, I've done it on Facebook, I've done it a couple times on each. And so it's just one little way that I don't, sort of like, okay, it's great that you're tooting your own horn for providing this access, but maybe you can make it actually usable and worthwhile. So that's just a small little thing that I wanted to tell you guys. Also tomorrow, I believe it's tomorrow, is the Santa Clara County CSBA meeting. And I plan to ask very specifically about initiatives within CSBA or statewide initiatives to try and improve the bandwidth through companies like Comcast and others. And I'll also probably bring up the food program waiver that we did not receive, which is making the food program really hard to put out versus the Seamless Summer program, which offered a lot more flexibility. So those are two things on my list to bring up at that meeting.
Well, Julie, you can drop the second one off because we received the Summer Seamless. So we're good. Yeah. We just learned of that. So we're ramping that up to be able to provide food for children, and actually all children in the community who are hungry.
That's wonderful. Oh my gosh, thank you.
Focus on the first one.
Okay, some good news. I mean, let's take it. Okay, awesome. And let's see, was there one other thing? No, that's it. That's all for now. Anybody else think of anything or want to say anything else?
No, but I do want to say I appreciate your advocacy for that, and Heather, also for your addressing the articles that, this is definitely a time to be paying attention to those topics that you brought up, even though all this other stuff is going on. And so thank you both for your advocacy in that.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. We're now at reports, and we're going to go to 5A is 2019, 2020 unaudited actuals financial report.
So good evening. While Matt is getting that up. Oh, he's quick. There it is. So this is our unaudited actuals financial report. And basically what that means is that this is how we close the books. So this is the report that really shows, because the audit, as you know, kind of combines things together and it's a little more difficult to look at. So this is the one that really tells us exactly how we ended the year, what it looked like as far as our fund balance and those dollar amounts that are there. So tonight we're going to share a little bit of that information with you. Matt, can you go to the next slide? So we'll talk, as we always do, about our general fund, the unrestricted and restricted, both sides of that make up our general fund. We'll talk a little bit about our fund balance. And then we added a slide this year to talk about cash flow, because that has really been something we've been focused on since that was how the state determined they were going to deal with some of the state underfunding. And so we're going to talk about what that actually looks like for us on the books when we talk about fund balance versus cash. And then we'll talk about our other funds and then a little bit about our road ahead. So next slide. So for our general fund review, and I realize it's kind of small there to see on the screen, so we tried to highlight in red, unfortunately, some of the numbers. But so what we look at normally when we look at our general fund, the first column is our unrestricted. Second column is our restricted, or those funds that come to us with strings or that we've locally restricted. And so we look at those separately, and then the totals. So you can see if you go down between the revenues and expenditures and then our transfers in and out, the net increase or decrease, that's where we always look to see how are we doing. And in this particular case, we deficit spent in those, but we had planned for that and we knew that. We've been looking at that since first and second interim as we reviewed. And so it ended up being 1.1 million in our unrestricted, and then we spent our carryover or fund balance of about 355,000 in our restricted. So if you look at the bottom line, the beginning balance versus the ending balance, the 3.18 is what we talk about, and how is that broken out. So on the next slide, you'll see that we've broken that out and show you the components. So the economic uncertainties of 3%, that's our required reserve that the state requires us to have. So we set that aside, 1.859. We had a little bit of lottery funds that we carried over. And then our lease revenue default, that was a little bit more than what we had anticipated we thought we were going to get. So we're holding on to it so that we can hopefully have it for carryover for next year to offset in case we end up with additional revenues we don't get from our leases for next year. And then our total reserve 2.3 left us with an undesignated of 838,519. So this is what I always refer to as our savings account, so to speak. So this is the bottom line dollar amount that we have. Anything that we would spend or deficit spend over and above our 3% would come out of that. So if you compare that with where we were at second interim was 836,951. So a little bit of, just a little bit less than $2,000 difference. So our budget numbers, we try to keep them as accurate as possible throughout the year, update them as we go, and we keep you updated at first and second interim. So we felt pretty good that even with some of the things that were thrown at us when we shut down in March and some of the things that we had to deal with, we felt really good that we were able to maintain those fund balances and in the year kind of exactly just about where we thought we were going to. So on the next slide, I'm going to have Evangeline talk about the cash flow.
So as Patty was talking about earlier, we thought we would include this slide to demonstrate something that you've had us or that you've heard us say over and over and over. And that's basically that although a budget balance may reflect a certain dollar figure, the cash balance is typically different to some degree. So we picked Fund 40 or our sale of site fund. And when we closed the fiscal year, we closed with a budget balance of $7.5 million. However, when you take a look at our cash balance is only 5.2. Now, some of the reasons why this happens is fourth quarter interest, for example, that is owed to us. So that's a receivable. It's not cash in the bank. So that dollar figure is subtracted from our available budget balance. The other big difference is that this is the fund that we do internal borrowing from. So when our other funds, our general fund at times, our enterprise fund, our donation fund is sometimes running in the negative cash, then we borrow internally and we pull from Fund 40. And so we also listed, when we closed the fiscal year, how much of our cash borrowing went to what fund. So our general fund, for example, in order to close in the positive, At the time, we needed $1.5 million. Cafeteria borrowed $250,000, and our donation fund had to borrow $520,000. Now, this is not a donation like the Home and School Club is donating to the school sites. This is the fund where we were tracking the grant that we received our buses for. And we had to pay for the buses before we could get reimbursed. So that's cash out that the fund did not have. So again, our budget balance closed with 7.5, but our cash balance ended with 5.2. Now, since closing the fiscal year, I can share with you that we have had to borrow on top of this 2.3 million, another 580,000 to go into the enterprise fund. So we've become very protective of the cash balance in Fund 400, specifically for internal fund borrowing. Next slide, Matt. These are the budget balances of all of the other funds. The cash balances to these funds also vary, not quite as much as Fund 400, by several thousand perhaps, but it is not unusual that a cash balance is different from a budget balance. Next slide. Patty?
So this one just talks about the road ahead, but I just want to take a second because it can be very confusing, because we did issue a TRAN, which is the Tax Revenue Anticipation Note. The complication with the TRAN is that it has to be paid back by the end of the fiscal year. So even though we were able to make those payments and pay the TRAN back, we were still short and had to transfer in from Fund 400. So that's why it's so important that we have those funds available to us to be able to move those around. The state did give us some flexibility with how much you can move around, but they didn't give us any flexibility as far as them not necessarily taking the cash from us that's coming up in the spring. So we'll be keeping an eye on this when we bring you the first interim and second interim reports in December and then again in March. We'll be talking about cash so that you'll know exactly where we are at the point of the borrowings and what's been paid back and what hasn't. So typically what happens at this point after the annual financials, then we take those documents and we hand those basically over to the auditors in October, November of this year, and they will run the audit, and then we'll bring that to you in January for your approval. We'll see in December the first interim report, and we talk about all the changes that we've made. But one of the biggest things that will be important at the first interim report in December is that will be your first look at our multi-year projection that shows the decline in the enrollment that we've been looking at for this year, because we have been guaranteed funding from, well, actually now 1920 again, which was 1819, 1920, now 2021, our ADA has remained the same. After that, the states made no guarantee about what that will look like. And so districts right now are required to show basically for 21-22 what our budget would look like with what our actual enrollment and ADA numbers are for this current year. And as I've been sharing with you weekly, we are down over 200 students from where we were last year. So that will be your first look at what the multi-year projection will look like, including some of those declines in enrollment. And then in January, we'll be taking a look at our first look at what the governor will put together for the 21-22 budget. We'll come again, as I said, to March for the interim report for this year, and then bring the budget to you for 21-22 in June of 21. So I'll open it up for any questions or comments.
Patty, now that we've paid off that TRAN, are we not eligible to issue another TRAN for next year?
So we paid off the one that was due for last year, and now we have a new one for this year. So when you approved it in April or in the spring, I think it was April, that was for 2021. And so right now we have those TRAN proceeds in the bank already.
That was okay, that's what I'm missing. I'm like, we should have an offsetting TRAN coming back.
Right. So we have a TRAN right now, then in the spring, we'll have to pay that back. We'll borrow again from Fund 400 to carry us over for the TRAN you'll approve next spring for the following year.
And what was that? What was the total balance on the TRAN that we issued?
5.5 million, I believe.
So my point is we actually need to maintain a balance of 5.5 million, or at least have visibility to a balance of 5.5 million at that point.
Yeah, in order to make that payment. And I think it's May, right, Evangeline? April or May? May, I think.
We make the first payment in February and the second payment in May.
In May, yeah.
Mhm.
So by May, we have to have enough. Which will be an interesting phenomenon considering that the state is not going to send us cash starting at the end of February.
Am I bad at math, or does that not work? I mean, if we already only have, will we see the money that we have paid out of this Fund 400 back in time to get that balance back to 7 million? Or
That's yes, our current plan is that's why we're not spending anything out of Fund 400 at this point, because it has $7.5 million in it right now. And I think our estimate for our lowest cash balance was about 5 million, 5.2. So as long as we can get that back, pay off the Tran, we'll have to borrow from Fund 400 to do that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Patty, I just have one question actually for you and Evangeline. What's the one thing, looking at this entire picture from a 10,000 foot view, that keeps you guys up at night? What's the biggest, scariest, hairiest thing of this whole picture that really, really worries you?
So for me, it's our dependence on our lease revenue, because that is an area right now that is a trigger for us. We transfer in over $7 million a year from our lease revenue. And that includes not only our leases, but also some of our own programs that we run, our extended care program as well, that is not functioning, as you know, as normal, because we can't have enough students yet. We can't open it up to the way that we have been. So that for me is an issue. Cash is also an issue, always has been, but there are mechanisms for how districts can borrow money to protect themselves from cash issues. And so while we still have to pay it back, they're already working at the state level on what they call a crossover Tran. So for districts like us that may end up, or, luckily we have Fund 400, but let's say that we didn't, this crossover Tran would allow you then to carry your cash borrowings across fiscal years. And so CSBA reached out, and they've been working on a statewide Tran for districts as well. There's also the possibility that in some of the trailer bill language that came in for the budget, that you can apply through the county office and plead your case for why you shouldn't be a part of the deferrals that the state are going to do in the spring. And you can bet we'll be taking advantage of that. They'll look at our books, they'll look at where we are, they'll see our Fund 400. They may or may not think that we're viable, but we're going to definitely try to get them to waive maybe part of it, at least. Maybe it might not be all of it, but some of it, in order to keep us whole for cash. So we'll be trying to take care of those. So for cash, there's some mechanisms, but when it comes to actual revenue that we're not going to receive on time, and we set up a receivable, that's what worries me the most about our budget, because we're tight.
Thank you. Thank you for being so candid. Board members, any other questions?
Fund 400 is limited, though, in terms of what we could actually spend it for if we wanted to use it for expenses, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's very limited because it's from sale of site. So It's very limited on that. And once it's gone, it's gone. So it's really one time. It's not something that we would get back. Well, I guess unless we sold something, but for right now, there's no plan to do that. So it would be, if we spent it, then it would be gone. So for cash purposes, I'm happy that we have it, because I don't know where else we would pull from at this point.
But in terms of, I guess I was trying to understand, like in terms of the likelihood of them looking at that against, the deferrals, right, is a cash flow thing versus actual revenue, because
Exactly.
it isn't.
It isn't. You're right.
Okay.
It's just for cash, to have the balance available for cash.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, next up we have report 5B is the learning continuity plan in lieu of the LCAP.
Thank you. Matt, can you bring that presentation up?
Wrong one.
The other one. All right, so this is our learning continuity plan, and I worked on it with Patty and Jeanette, and I'm going to go over just some of the highlights because it'll be up later in the agenda as a public hearing, and then it'll be brought back to the board at the end of the month for approval. You can go to the next slide. This is just a little bit of the background, is that our LCAP was put on hold this spring when we were shut down, and at the time, they had us do an operations report at the end of the year, which really just highlighted our transition, our quick transition from in-person learning to distance learning over the spring. And then they decided that they were going to have us do an LCAP in August. And then they changed their mind and decided to go with a learning continuity plan and then just resume our normal cycle for the LCAP in the spring. So this learning continuity plan, if you go to the next slide, just here are the components where it really is just highlighting kind of our stakeholder engagement, what we're doing currently for in-person learning and distance learning, and how are we supporting the kids through their learning, through their social emotional well-being, and their nutrition. You can go to the next slide. So the first part of the plan, it just really had us highlight kind of the impact on COVID-19, and it affected everyone in different ways, but definitely brought community together in ways to find ways to support students and our families that might have been in a situation where they had loss of employment, or families that were working as essential workers, and really helping supporting kids trying to then navigate school from home. And so knowing that we are going to continue in this distance learning manner in the fall, just taking those considerations as we developed our plan. You can go to the next slide. So the stakeholder engagement was done in a variety of ways. So Mary Kay held a town hall with MTA. She also met with all of the home and school clubs at each of the school sites. And then we sent out a number of surveys to parents and our teaching staff to understand what they needed. And then we brought our draft to the DLAC as well as to the presidents of our home and school club for further feedback. So for in-person instruction, the first slide is really just highlighting the satellite programs that we have started and really trying to reach the kids that had a hard time doing distance learning this spring, as well as students who have parents that are essential workers, and providing a safe environment for them to be working on campus in their distance learning education. And so they're all online and working with different teachers in the same classroom, but we have adult support in there, we have connectivity, and really just trying to support them to be engaged this fall. So that rolled out this week ago, and it's going well so far. And like Mary Kay said, we're looking at, what other plans we'll have for having more students on site as the new guidelines come down, and who else we can support in the program. So if you go to the next slide, beyond the satellite programs, we have been doing a slow phase-in. So we had our Mod Severe SDC program start. Our middle school one started with our satellites last week, and then today we had our elementary SDC classes at Latimer start, and Teresa was there helping support the first day, and it was a smooth rollout. In fact, I got a email from the upper grade SDC teacher just a couple minutes ago saying how excited she was, sharing some pictures, and really excited to be back in person. and I was over at the Payne Preschool for their drop-off. Very well organized by Jeanette, and definitely had a lot of parents excited and kids excited to see other kids, and parents to see their kids being so excited to start back at school. So a lot of positives today, and we're continuing to plan for our rollout of the Anderson preschools later this month. And also as we go forward, just looking at what the next phase might be and making sure that we're doing it in a safe manner, and we're taking all the things that we're learning from this phase-in approach to support our students. You can go to the next. So for our distance learning, thank you, Brian, for sharing feedback on the distance learning. We worked with our teachers union to really create a schedule that was consistent across the grade levels, and really to meet the increased demands of rigor and of instruction, and putting in a plan in place that the teachers felt really comfortable with, that would meet the needs of their students. And different is also that we are learning how the different ways of documenting and tracking everything. And that's been a slow rollout of guidance. And so we are working with our union and our SIS system areas to find the best ways to do some of this tracking. And so we already know that we're looking at we're tracking attendance, and we're tracking our assignments, and we're documenting our weekly lesson plans. And now we're looking at how to track participation in a way that's just not, not overwhelming for the teachers to do, but really helps us get a sense of who is engaging, and then what do we do if they're not engaging. Because of our rollout this spring, we knew what it was going to take for the deployment of devices and hotspots. So all the sites had really good plans already in place, supported by our tech department, to really get the devices and hotspots in people's hands. In addition to that, we were able to, unlike the spring, get out our textbooks, workbooks, paper curriculum, so that they had a variety of materials, as well as some really neat school supplies that our business department worked on putting together, so that we knew that kids had the materials necessary to really access what the teachers were asking them to do at home. And then we also surveyed our teachers about professional development. And as I highlighted at the last board meeting, is we had a lot of teacher leaders step up, a lot of teachers that are familiar with their programs that would be beneficial to distance learning. And so we were able to run a menu on August 13th and 14th to provide that PD. And the only one that was mandatory was the Engaged Brain training. And that was really a PD workshop on really how to help make distance learning engaging on the teacher end, on the student end, little quick tips and tricks that we were seeing day one, which was kind of exciting to see. So you can go to the next slide. And with distance learning, some of our staff roles have changed a little bit, mainly looking at our extended day. So our enrollment in an extended day after school is not so high. So we have leveraged the supervisors. Tracy's been amazing in organizing this, and our activity leaders to support our satellite programs. And that's been a huge help. Like I said, the rollout went really smoothly. And now we're looking at how we can, if we're able to expand some of that. And then also making sure that while we're in distance learning, that we're recognizing some of the unique needs that we have. So we did invite students that were homeless or had foster youth to be a part of our satellite programs. Our 7th and 8th graders cannot be a part of our satellite programs at this time with the guidance. And so we were providing some tutoring, again, leveraging our activity leaders. And then just on the regular schedule of supporting students, our teachers normally are running small groups. And so really building that into our day to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our EL students, our students that might be struggling with content, and then our students with special needs. And all of our students with an IEP now have a distance learning plan, which basically just translates what their services will look like in this distance environment. You can go to the next slide. As we look at pupil learning loss, so part of having those satellite programs is to address the pupil learning loss, being able to provide an adult that can help support them during their distance learning, and targeting students having some additional support with the tutoring as well. So really identifying who are those kids, and now, you know, there's some more that have cropped up at the beginning of the school year, and so that's why we're continually looking at that and for planning, as well as our typical assessment. So our assessment calendar has expanded a little bit, and we do find that to be very valuable to identify what standards still need to be worked on, as well as some vertical articulation about the standards that need to be embedded in this school year. And then we were able to increase our in-person assessment before school started, which is a great opportunity. Some kids got to meet their teachers, and teachers were able to do more assessment, which helped some of the burden of doing it over Zoom, which could be a little bit more lengthy. So you can change to the next slide. And then we also were able to increase our intervention staff. So we knew right away that some kids were coming to us that weren't engaged and that we needed to intervene upon right away. And so we were able to start our intervention staff off at the beginning of the school year and increase their calendar. They are packed, so they are running small group Zooms intervention daily, and I think that'll be a huge benefit for our kids that need that extra support as they move forward, because we might be in this for a little bit. As well as progress monitoring by our teachers, so really watching that assessment. We have our Wednesdays still for collaboration, so we're looking at that assessment data, looking at ways that we need to provide support, moving kids into intervention or out of intervention, and then also looking at participation and really trying to re-engage those that have decided to disengage, and what that'll look like with our new tracking system through ARIES. You can go to the next slide. Heather had mentioned about the mental health of our students. I know it's hard with some of the kids that are at home, feeling a little bit isolated, feeling a little bit, you know, they're not as connected. So sometimes on campus, those adults are those trusted adults. And so it is hard for our students. We thankfully have a fabulous counseling staff, and they quickly knew that, you know, this would be an issue returning, and making sure that they had some trauma lessons right off the get-go for our classroom teachers to go through with their class as a broad tier 1 of just how to navigate the trauma that might have occurred during COVID. And so we've been able to utilize that, as well as also having a strong SEL curriculum in place for all of our grade levels. So our teachers have been actively teaching Komochis and Second Step. And then we're continuing our counseling support for those that might need something a little bit more than what everyone's getting in our tier 1 system. Can you go to the next? And as far as our pupil engagement goes, we did outline our expectations. If you saw our video with Mary Kay and myself, we outlined just how you could help your child at home with distance learning, because it is a little challenging for some kids to realize that when they're at home, they're actually now in school. And then also too, that you are on the hook for coming to school every day, and that hasn't been waived. It's not an option to show up every day, it is an expectation. And with the tracking, I think this will really help us identify kids early if they're not attending, and for our outreach to happen in a way that's, you know, starting with the classroom teacher, really trying to come from a supportive manner to see if there's any barriers, what are those barriers, how can we help them, and then if that's not working, if having the principal then do a meeting with the parent to see what else are we not understanding. That would really make it so that you can be involved, because considering we don't know when this is going to end and when we'll all be back, we really want kids to get in the habit right off the bat for coming to school. And fortunately, our attendance has been pretty good, which is exciting to see. I think even over Zoom, kids are excited to kind of reconnect, meet their new teacher and their new classmates. But if we do have people that are choosing not to show up, we are sending our chronic absenteeism letters to make sure that parents do understand the importance that it is compulsory ed and that students do need to come to school every day. You can go to the next slide. Patty, you're on.
So as we talked about, some things have changed since we wrote this, and so we'll be updating some things in our plan before we bring it back to you for adoption in a couple of weeks. But we are offering meals on site. Now with the seamless waiver, we're able to do it for all kids, and we have some ideas about, because we are starting to recognize that for parents who are at home with the students to leave, get to the school, pick up lunch, get back, and then get back on an afternoon Zoom, that can be a little tight. So we're talking about maybe opening up an afternoon pickup for after school where they could still pick up their meals. We're also looking at the possibility of being able to provide weekend meals. And then Anderson is actually eligible for possible dinner meals. So we are looking at all the avenues that we can take advantage of to feed as many folks as possible. But the extension of the seamless waiver was critical, because what that means is we can feed any child age up to 18. It doesn't matter even if they're not a Moreland student. If they happen to be in the area, they can come and pick up food from us. And then we're able to, again, provide, do it curbside or walk up, or for sure all of our satellites and any students that are on campus. So we're super happy that that finally came through. They only extended it through December, but that's okay, because by doing that, they've kind of set the precedent that if we do end up going longer than that, it'll be a lot easier for them just to extend that deadline than to have to go back and actually approve the waiver. So we're hopeful that no matter what, we'll end up with some kind of combination of that for the remainder of the year, if at all possible. And then just notifying and how we're communicating with our folks. We're getting ready to roll out some communication about that since we just found out about it. So we are planning to start that on Monday, the 14th. And so we'll be gearing up, making sure we have enough food on site and have the supplies that we need in order to do that. And then if we need to shift some staff, we will. But right now we're prepared to at least offer that at the majority of our sites. And then we're thinking about maybe MMS or Latimer for our site to do our afternoon, but we're still in the process of planning for that and what that might look like for staffing. So we're happy that we are able to feed as many students as possible. Next slide, Matt.
And then the last one is just our increased and improved services. So that's a portion of the LCAP that's always there. And it really just highlights the services that are principally directed towards our foster youth, homeless, low income, and EL students, but really could benefit everyone. And so in the plan, they have us list out our current LCAP actions that are in that in this section. In the event that we come back, an example would be like our CBET classes. They're not currently running, but if we were to come back, we might consider bringing that program back for our parents, maybe in the later part of the year. But then we also included some other actions that are just unique to this instructional model, such as our satellite program, our intervention that's on an increased calendar, and then like the school supplies, things that we normally don't send home, devices and supplies and all of that for them, but really trying to make sure that our students have access to the education that we're delivering them. And that's it. So this will go for a public hearing in our next part of our agenda, and then we will bring it back to you with some of those updates that Patty was saying at the next board meeting for your approval, along with the federal addendum. So as you may remember, our federal addendum answers a couple questions about our federal funding that are not included in the LCAP. I thought with the revisions of the LCAP, they might put those in, but seems to be a whole separate plan still. So that'll also come at the end of September for you. And that's it.
Great. Thank you both so much. And board members, did you have any questions or anything to add?
Just my appreciation for the attention to detail. had read the article. I had also read the presentation about the social emotional need, and I was thrilled that, you know, I know we're working towards addressing those needs. I know that that will be a constant goal, and I'm thankful that y'all are looking under every rock for every resource and making sure you can do everything you possibly can for these kiddos that, you know, are having such a hard time. And I hope so for staff as well. You know, this isn't an easy time for anyone, and for our teachers and staff who are also working from home in a lot of cases, trying to be the rock for kids and provide, you know, everything that they were providing in a whole completely different format, while they themselves are also probably struggling with, you know, all the challenges we all are. So I'm really thrilled that that continues to be a focus, and want to continue to support your efforts towards providing that emotional, social emotional support for not only the kiddos, but for all the adults we serve as well.
Any other comments from board members? I have a couple, so I'll go last.
Yeah, just a quick question. You know, I feel like some of these experiences have been incredibly laborious for the staff to help to try to maintain and produce. And how does this feel? Was this a time save? This appears like it was a time savings, maybe better use of time than the past. I'm trying to thread a needle of comments and judgments, but is this a better setup or system in terms of reporting our progress, or how do you feel about it as a make work project?
I will answer that for you, because I think Destiny and Patty want to be cautious in their response. It's a make work project. It is definitely a make work project. And it is because, I mean, it's in an attempt, but the timelines that we're receiving from the state are not very doable. So while Destiny and Patty have done everything to get this out the door, we are here on September 8th with a plan that was just presented to us. What date did you both receive a final draft of this?
Like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Middle of August.
Yeah, so I will attest to the fact that while we're trying to start school, while we're trying to figure out these guidance documents, while we're doing all this other stuff, I don't feel that while they've gone above and beyond, I think this is, I don't know, Destiny, number 8 or 10 of her giving this presentation. Within those 2 weeks of doing all of that, starting school, we were also doing this. And there's a disconnect right now with the timelines that we're being given from the state and the reality of whether or not this is going to be a meaningful document. And I add to Destiny and Patty anything you want, but I think we have to be honest in what we're being asked to do and the disconnect that we're feeling at our level. Anything you want to add, ladies?
No,
I just wanted to make it okay for you to say it.
I think you said it.
I'm really, really thankful to them, because they look at every task with how can we do this to the best of our ability and make it meaningful. And this timeline and this level of detail this quickly is a level of management from the state down that I've never seen this erratic. Okay.
I think that is exactly, the point I was trying to make, which is it's the LCAP. Now it's I don't know if they're calling it the LCP, or, that it's a constant moving target for you all to be able to, I guess, be held accountable to something that we don't really even have necessarily, a roadmap towards achievement. And so,
another example of that, and then I will get off my high horse, but another example of that is the fact that we have documentation guidelines coming down that will be used for auditing purposes, but the auditors have no idea yet what they will be auditing. So it's kind of like navigating in the dark in a canoe in the swamp, and you're hoping that you're going to be able to throw a target at the right thing without killing people with over documentation. Right. But then on the flip side, you don't want to miss the mark and not meet your title. So we're lucky that we have the experience of Destiny and Patty behind this, who will figure it out, and the cooperation of our employee organizations to help navigate this interesting landscape we're in of guidance document on top of guidance document on top of document on top of document. And because they understand it, that it's not Moreland rolling it out, it's Moreland reacting to it and pushing back on areas that we're not going to do. And I know that's an important one for you, Brian. We aren't doing it all. Like, we're saying this is good enough, and what's the minimum that we can do to be compliant, because that's what we have to do. And we don't work that way in any other arena when it comes to how we're going to service kids. But we're making a lot of decisions right now about where is our most energy going to be, and it's not on these things. But that doesn't mean that they take any less time. And it doesn't mean that what Destiny and Patty have put together isn't very, very quality. It's quality within the realm of what we could put together.
So Julie's point earlier, is there a way that we can support staff and advocate for, I mean, I guess, one of my first responses is wondering, seriously, is there staff, are there resources higher up that can be putting together all of these, documents and then reading them all and rolling out the demands and expectations? Is there an avenue for us to advocate, smart accountability,
Yes.
smart reporting?
Through CSBA. And I think that the more we can utilize those organizations, certainly ACTS has heard it. I'm sure CTA has heard a lot of it. But if we all push back with our organizations, they're going to hear one message. And so that's kind of why I'm being as blunt and open. In a lot of areas that have PTAs, they're also advocating for energy to be put in the right spot. So those are the avenues of your power. So utilize them.
I had a couple things that I wanted to call out specifically that in reading the learning continuity plan and also reading the presentation, there were a couple things that really stood out for me just as a parent and being part of this district for so long that I was really pleased with. And so I wanted to reiterate, I think Heather definitely talked about this as well. I really appreciate the focus on the multiple mental health and social emotional learning supports. That's huge. And that we're at a point where that's like common language for parents now to talk about things like that. Whereas I would say maybe 5-6 years ago, that was not the case. So I really appreciate such a priority being put on that. And it shows in this report, it shows in the presentation, it shows in what you all talk about. And that is very much appreciated. Also the supplies, they were a really nice touch. So I'm not exactly sure who came up with that. I've heard a little bit about it, but it was a weird start to school. Usually it's like, oh, let's go shopping, let's go get the things. And it was just sort of like, oh, one day it's summer, next day it's school. But for whatever reason, the supplies were just like a real nice sort of, oh yeah, school's starting. And they were very much appreciated, at our house. So thank you for whoever came up with that. I know it was a lot of work and it was appreciated. I also wanted to note, I was happy to see that the community liaisons are working with our Spanish-speaking families. And I know they do that anyway, but I like that it was called out in the report. And, that particular group of people are fabulous and they work so hard and they're such, important threads in our community. And so I just wanted to call out that I appreciate that we have them and the work that they do. Also, I had quite a few things that popped out for me on this, so I apologize if it seems like I'm rambling. I only have two more. The case managers that are assigned to the IEP, to each family that has an IEP or a 504, to ensure that the students' needs are met. I'm not sure if that differs from common practice or not, but I appreciated that there was a real sense of, we're not going to lose track of this. Not that you would, but, we're not going to lose track of these families and these students' needs. And that was great to see. And I appreciate that, it sort of seems like all hands on deck for the 7th and 8th grade students who need extra support for the tutoring program. And, I just appreciate the willingness and flexibility of our staff to do whatever is necessary to support our kids. And, that's what makes Moreland special. So those are the things that really just screamed out at me when I was reading. And so I just want to thank you, everybody that was that worked on this. And I'm sorry it was a make work, but I kind of really liked it, which is strange. I don't know, just the format, it really
That's very good to hear, Julie.
I don't know why I like it. I feel like a freak, but I liked it. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
And it has been an all hands on deck effort. I don't think there's one person that's not working harder now than they ever worked before in the past. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So now we are moving along on our agenda to item 6, action discussion items. A, which is a public hearing on the learning continuity plan. And this is the really exciting time when I get to bring out the gavel and I get to use it. So we will be holding a public hearing on the Moreland School District's Learning Continuity Plan. This is an opportunity for the public to make comments regarding the proposed plan. The public hearing notice has been posted in the window for public view at every school site and at the school district office. We will now open the public hearing for public comment at 7:22 p.m. Do we have any members of the public who wish to comment? Oh, shoot, was I supposed to do this? Okay, I've opened 7:22. There we go. Okay, hearing none, we will now close the public hearing at 7:23. There we go. Thank you. If there are no other comments, oh, I already said that. Sorry. Okay.
Julie,
yes.
Sorry. Did Shriram, it looked like he was trying to gesture for you.
Sorry, I didn't see his gesture.
No. I wasn't.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry about that.
All good. Okay. So at this point, thank you to everybody for being part of this public hearing. And great job, Destiny and Patty and all the staff who worked on this deliverable. Thank you. Okay, so we don't need to vote on that, I don't think. So I think we just move along. Okay, now we're on 6D.
Julie, we'll bring it back for vote at the next board meeting.
Thank
along
you.
with the federal addendum.
The addendum, yes, which I wrote about. Okay, thank you so much. Now we're on to 6B, which is approve the 2019-2020 unaudited actuals financial report.
So moved.
Oh, I'll just echo. Well, that was easy enough. I didn't even have to say.
Awesome.
You want to introduce it? I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of you.
It's okay.
I assume you want us to approve what you presented.
That would be great.
I'll second that as well.
That's awesome.
Brian in the dark. Yes.
Okay, then we will do a roll call vote. Trustee Chatrathi.
Aye.
Trustee Penzel.
Aye.
Trustee Salas.
Aye.
Trustee Sutton.
Aye.
Trustee Reynolds Grabby. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you again, Patty, Evangeline, for putting it together. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to 6C, approve resolution number 6-2020/2021 GAN limit actual for 2019 to 2020 and projected for 2020 to 2021.
So as part of the annual financial package, we have what's called the GAN limit. And, you know, I just did a little math today, and this went into effect 41 years ago, in case you were curious. And nothing's really changed since then. So the reality is no one really knows why we do this anymore, except that there is a state GAN limit that they have to calculate. So they require districts and public agencies to do their own. So then if we were over, then that's something that the state would have to count towards theirs. But I can report that we were not. We met our GAN limit. And so we fall within the category and don't add to the state's problem, I guess, best way to put it. So anyway, I'm asking for your approval of the GAN limit resolution as presented.
And this would be another example of make work.
Exactly.
I appreciate that you started with, I did a little math today. I move to approve Resolution 6.
Thank you, Heather. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sriram. Okay, roll call vote. Trustee Chatrathi.
Aye.
Trustee Penzel.
Aye.
Trustee Salez.
Aye.
Trustee Sutton.
Aye.
Trustee Reynolds Grabby. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yay, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, now we are on to consent items. Do we have a motion to approve an aggregate?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have a second? I'll second. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
For the board policy 5141.21, I just wanted to make sure I understood this correctly, and maybe it's just the way it's worded, the draft that I'm looking at. We are, because it's an optional policy, we are implementing we are including the language option 2, correct? For the because of the conflict between state and federal law.
We won't be including the option 2 language. That probably was left on there accidentally.
We will not be?
We will not, because there's no option 1 on that language, correct?
Well, that's what was confusing.
Yeah, so that was left accidentally.
Okay, so we won't have language acknowledging the conflict, and
the language for the conflict will be there. The words option 2 will not.
Okay, so the paragraph that follows option 2 will be, though.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure of.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I just thought.
We can bring it back next time if you need to see an updated version. If you're okay with it, then we'll move forward.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with it, and it's what I expected. I was a little bit thrown when I went to reread and thought, wait a minute, and I just wanted to clarify. So as long as that language is going to be included, that's fine.
Great.
Okay, so do we need to redo the motion because of that change, or are we good?
I don't think we need to redo the motion.
Okay,
That's fine.
just want to make sure we're by the book. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table, and at this point, I will do the roll call vote. Right, I haven't done that yet, right? Sorry. Okay, Trustee Chatrathi. To
Aye.
vote. Okay,
Aye, sorry.
gotcha. Okay, Trustee Penzel.
Aye.
Trustee Salez.
Aye.
Trustee Sutton.
Aye.
Trustee Reynolds Grabby, aye. Motion carries. Consent items are approved. Okay, and now we are on to closing items on the agenda. That would be 8, and we're looking at future meeting dates.
Okay, so there are 2 dates that we need feedback from all of you, and we only have some of you. They were listed in the Friday report with links to let us know what you need. One is the President's Council rotation. So if you cannot make any of those dates, please drop an email to Tanya so that she knows that you've looked at it. If you can make some of those dates, please go on to that form link and put those dates in. And then also we're still needing to know the best dates for the for the December governance meetings. So Tanya, that is also a link on the Friday report. So both are there. as of Friday. So if you could give us those dates, that would be a great thing. And then the only other thing for me is we will be posting this video online if I get an approval from all board members. So just show me a thumbs up. Okay, great.
My thumb is up.
Your thumb
My
is
thumb
up.
is up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on future meeting dates, board member?
Can I just clarify? Because I know we talked about the governance meeting and President's Council. I know for me, for President's Council, I was kind of waiting to see, do you want us to just put our availability in its entirety? Or I was kind of trying to let others, who may have a more restricted schedule kind of make their selections first?
I think that you should put your name. I think the way that it's monitored, that it's, you should be able to let her know even if somebody else's name is in there. And then we'll just pick one based on balancing it out. We did agree at last year's governance meeting to rotate, so that's why we're doing it this way. So we want kind of a balance, I think, is the idea. Yeah. So it would be great if everybody could do at least one, and then we'll see, we'll try and work towards that.
Great. Okay, we will do that. And now we're on to closing items 8B, announcements, reminders, and requests. Board members, anybody have anything to add to this?
Not today, not from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I have none.
Thank you, Ryan.
So just as a follow-up to those terrific young men who are working on computers, and me circling back, I know I've asked lots of times over the years about the declaration of surplus equipment as it relates to computer use, and feeling like there's got to be a great way we can use these to support families. In a Friday report, could you please just let us know if this is maybe an avenue that could address or achieve those goals, working with these young men?
We can discuss it and put that in the Friday report. Give
Perfect.
us about a
Thank
week
you.
to have a cabinet meeting on that.
Yeah, I know it's more complicated than it would appear at the surface level. So I really respect your feedback, and that's Friday report would be perfect.
Okay, any other Friday report requests? Okay, I had a couple, I'm not exactly sure where, just a couple questions that maybe it could be handled with a Friday report request. First of all, I wanted to make sure it's still on the list. I know it's on the list. I'm pretty sure it's on the list, but the subcommittee on racial injustice, steps to mitigate racial injustice in our schools. It's just a tickler for me. It stays on my list for Friday report requests, and it never goes off. Just my internal list. Also, if there's anything in particular other than what we've already discussed that we can do to help with digital equity, if maybe a letter can be sent. I mean, I would imagine the board might be open to being part of a letter to whomever about this ongoing problem. And then we had a request on email, and I apologize if I've kind of lost track of if this wasn't a Friday report or if it wasn't, or if it was a conversation. We had a request as a board to weigh in on Prop 15 and possibly adopt a resolution in favor of Prop 15 because it would benefit schools. Also known as the split roll, the repeal of the businesses over $3 million on their property taxes. Just hitting the highlights on this. The example of like Apple and HP, Cisco, Facebook would, those sorts of companies would actually pay property taxes based on today and not 1973. This may be a bridge too far for this board. I'm not really sure, but I did want to mention it because there was a request that came in email maybe a month or so ago. wanting us to, as a board, to weigh in on this. And, you know, it's not up to me solely. So I just wanted to float it out there. And maybe a Friday report is the best place to have this discussion, or I mean, at least get information on it, and then we talk about it in a future agenda. I'm not sure. And maybe the board doesn't even want to talk about it, which is fine too. But I wanted to at least mention it. So that's been on my list.
So for me, I don't know that it would take more than 15 minutes of staff time, and it feels a little outside of what we would normally take on. I'm looking to kind of Brian as our, you know, political gauge.
The political gauge. I'm not sure what I am at that point.
Bellwether, Brian.
You
know, I don't know. I think I actually have to educate myself more before I would be willing to comment on it.
Well, and I don't even want to like have a discussion about it like now. I just wanted it. It's more like it'd be nice to get back to this person and say, we're not taking that up, or we are taking that up, or, you know, something. And at this point, she's kind of hanging. And maybe that's okay that she can just hang out there. But
I believe we did put some information in a past Friday report. And so let me do some research on where that was and ask that so I was
like 5 minutes.
Yeah, let me just tie it back to what we've discussed in the past.
Okay.
And then we'll answer those questions in the Friday report.
And then just, so then you'd be looking for 3 of us to say, oh yeah, this is something we think is.
And I believe that's where it went before, but okay. From 1 week to the next is very foggy. So I don't remember. I have a vague recollection that we did have that conversation in the past, and you know, I did put that out there in the Friday report.
I don't think we've actually. Yes, I think.
Let me research, Julie, and I'll find out.
Okay, awesome.
I think that's true on a couple of those topics, right? That we are acknowledging that these are priorities, but not quite bubbled up to the surface of the plethora of other priorities today.
Yes. Yes to all. Yes. Okay. And I had some other questions, but I think I can just, what's the best way? Just send them to you, Mary Kay? And then maybe they might enter into the Friday report. Okay.
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Wonderful. Anybody have any other items? Okay, hearing none, I'm about to end this meeting, and I wanted to end it on a high note and thank Max, Ashish, and Amoj. I'm not sure I said that correctly.
Amoj, maybe.
Amoj, thank you. That your kindness is power, and I just think they're phenomenal young men, and I'm so proud of them for making a difference. And also thankful for seamless waivers that finally, you know, come to fruition and feed our community. So that's terrific. And thank you to all the staff and the board members, and Mary Kay, to you for all the things you're juggling to make, you know, our kiddos' lives better and enriched. And you know, I'm thankful for Moreland. It is truly a hard time, but there are little silver linings here and there. So, whew, okay. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting unless anybody has anything else. Hearing none, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 7:39 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay. Since I have the gavel. Thank you.
Give the girl a gavel.
Bring your own gavel. That's right. BYOD. Okay. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Good night.